Well, I did read it. When we got the link for the episode, for this week's episode, and clicked on it, and honest to God, was shocked. It's not like you got 12 or 13-year-old kids. These are grown women. And there's a way to handle your business that way. If there's something you don't like, you go to the writers, you go to the boss, you go to somebody, an agent, whoever, and you sit down as a professional and say, hey, I've got some questions. I don't see how in any professional walk of life, laying on the ground, pouting and yelling out, whatever it was they were yelling out and complaining, that's going to quite get you very far. The one link that was in there, and I was reading, whoever wrote that link made a really good point. A few years ago, when Sasha Banks was hot and was setting a certain standard, she was, because the women's division wasn't nearly as strong as it is now, and she was really standing out because of that. Now suddenly there's been a huge uptick, and a lot of those young women, according to the writer, have been following in Sasha's footsteps, and maybe getting a foot or step or two beyond. Here's one thing I've learned a long time ago in wrestling: there is nobody that's inexpendable. Nobody. Bruno Sammartino was blackballed and fired in one of his earlier runs as champion, when he started talking about a union in the dressing room, and was blackballed at the start for 3 years. Hogan at his peak was not inexpendable. Flair at his best was not inexpendable. None of us are. There's always, especially there's a lot of talented guys and women around the industry. And the one thing that always stood out for me was there's always somebody willing to step into your place, into your spot. But now that all said, this is, remember I said Frankenstein's monster? This is the Frankenstein's monster that Mr. McMoran has created. I'm sure that these, women weren't just uber professional every night of their career there, and then one night something didn't go their way and they just decided to throw themselves on the floor and start moaning and groaning. If they did that, they did it because at some earlier point it got them something. Somebody bent over backwards to pat them on the head, give them some more money, give them a hug, or something. But there's a reason they responded that way. You talk about the eye of the tiger with Vince. The Vince McMahon that I worked for, I don't imagine that would have gotten any of us very far. To be honest with you, I don't know of anybody that would have done it in those days, because aside from the boss, aside from the company firing you or whatever, the guys in the dressing room, I can't imagine that Dick Slater or Dick Murdoch or Terry Gordy or guys like that would have taken too kindly to Shane Douglas throwing himself on the floor and holding my breath. But it's just all of these. Every time I read these kind of stories, it just makes me scratch my head and think, where in the fuck has my industry gone? It's I don't know, astounding. I'll say this up front, just to cave off any, the trolling bullshit. If those reports were inaccurate, then I temper a bit of what I said. If they were anywhere near accurate, then I stand by everything I'm saying and chastising both of them. This is, in the great big world of grown-ups, this is how professionals act. Not throw yourself on the floor and hold your breath and kick and moan and groan and, yell out whatever you want to yell out. At your next job, whatever that may be, try the professional route. Try walking in and saying, shake hands with the person, say, I got to talk to you about something. Can we please talk? Try the professional route. I'm just spitballing here, but I think you'll probably get a little bit further than the throw myself on the ground routine.